Welcome to week 2 of 40 Weeks with Dr. Martin. Today we're going to cover tips and tricks for maximizing your chances of conceiving by timing you know what when you are most fertile. Congratulations! You're #TTC, trying to conceive. I couldn't be more excited. But if it's been a few months of trying, you've probably realized that you're not 100% fertile all day, every day, like your high school health teacher told you. You've probably also noticed that your reproductive system works on a cycle, the menstrual cycle. Today, I'll get into exactly what days during your menstrual cycle you're most fertile so you can maximize your chances of conceiving. I'm Dr. Eva Martin. I graduated from Harvard Medical School and trained in OBGYN. I am passionate about giving you honest, straightforward answers to all your pregnancy questions here on 40 Weeks with Dr. Martin. Today we're going to talk about the birds and the bees, but first we have to get into the nitty-gritty. Yep, Aunt Flo, the present at the end of the month, your period, the menstrual cycle. In the medical world, day 1 of your menstrual cycle is the first day of your period. Most women have 28-day cycles, but they vary and that's totally normal. About halfway through your menstrual cycle, your ovary releases an egg. This is called ovulation. You've probably heard about ovulation from ovulation predictor kits, which you naturally ran out to Walgreens and bought 15 of the second you decided to try to get pregnant, right? Here's the thing about predicting ovulation. You have to count backwards in time. Most women ovulate 14 days before the first day of the period. For women with a 28-day cycle, that's also 14 days after their menstrual cycle day 1. But if your period is a little longer or shorter, this varies. In fact, the first part of the menstrual cycle often varies, making it hard to count the days until ovulation. You can see how the math gets complicated when you need to go back in time to do it. Now, you're probably imagining your ovary laying a perfect chicken egg right inside your uterus, just ready to become a baby. As entertaining as that is, it's not exactly how it happens. The ovary releases the egg, which then has to get swallowed up by the fallopian tubes that lead to the uterus. The egg will survive in the fallopian tubes for about 1 day. It needs to meet its sperm soulmate during that time. Does that mean that there's only one perfect day when the egg is in the fallopian tube that you can get pregnant or else you're doomed? No. Fortunately, sperm can live for 3 to 5 days in a woman's body. So basically, the sperm can arrive early and wait for the party to get started. Now, your best chances of getting pregnant are if the sperm are already present in the fallopian tube when the egg arrives, which means that you have a fertile window. And there are several methods for figuring out when you're in your fertile window. We're going to talk about 5 of them today. The first method is the standard days method. Get out a calendar and a highlighter. Mark the first day of your period as day 1, as we discussed. Using the standard days method, count out 8 days and start highlighting until you get to day 19. Yes, it's a lot of days. Most experts recommend having sex every day or every other day during this fertile window. Don't love the idea of hanging up a calendar with your fertile window highlighted? Well, what woman doesn't love jewelry? Some crafty docs came up with a jewelry solution that allows you to track the days of your cycle with beads. The standard days method is a pretty basic method, so it can leave you with a wide time frame for when you're fertile. Let's move on to the next method, which, while it sounds maybe sticky icky, can be very effective. The second method is the cervical mucus method. Don't worry, you don't actually have to buy a speculum and look at your cervix for this one. You may have noticed that your vaginal discharge changes over the course of your cycle. And yes, not only is it totally normal, but also healthy and helpful. Right before ovulation, when your ovary releases an egg, the cervical mucus increases and becomes thin and slippery. After ovulation, the amount of mucus decreases and becomes thicker. Of course, lube, intercourse, and some medications, douching, any of these things can change what your cervical mucus looks like. A simplification of the cervical mucus method is the 2-day method. Check your cervical mucus twice a day and ask yourself these 2 questions. Did I notice any secretions today? Did I notice any secretions yesterday? If you say yes to either, you could be fertile. So go get it, girl. No mucus 2 days in a row, odds are lower that you're in your fertile window. This method is great for those who are comfortable examining their vaginal discharge. But for those of you who are uncomfortable or who have difficulty determining thick versus thin, maybe the next method is for you. The third method is the basal body temperature method, which is your temperature when you're completely at rest, not after walking around or running or drinking soup or eating ice cream. In other words, your temperature as soon as you wake up in the morning, but before you get out of bed. When you ovulate, temperature rises ever so slightly, 1/2 to 1 degree Fahrenheit. This is the shift. The temperature usually stays a little higher until your period starts. By tracking when the shift occurs, you can figure out when you ovulated. I once tried to measure my basal body temperature every morning before getting out of bed when it's most accurate, and found in a week I got it done 0 times because I always jump out of bed, get the coffee started. By the time I remembered, I'd already had a couple sips of hot coffee. So this isn't the best method for everyone, and just like standard days or counting your cycle out, you don't know if you've ovulated until after it's already happened, which can be problematic when you're trying to get those sperm in the fallopian tube before the egg arrives. In any case, it's not perfect, but it can give you a lot of information about your cycle, which can be helpful in figuring out exactly when that fertile window is. Let's move on to the next method. The fourth method is the symptothermal method. It's not really its own method, but a mashup of 2 or more of the others. Enough said, we've already discussed them. Moving on to number 5. The 5th and final method is to use an ovulation predictor kit. Yep, the big guns. OPKs detect a hormone called LH, or luteinizing hormone. LH is a messenger that tells your ovaries that it's time to release an egg into the wild yonder. After LH increases, aka the LH surge, the ovary releases an egg within about a day and a half. Remember, after release, the egg can survive in the fallopian tube about 1 day. That means that your best chance to conceive is to have sex when you see that OPK turn positive. Ovulation predictors can get a little expensive if you're not sure exactly when to start that 1 week, or you want to do more than 1 week of testing, since most kits contain about a week of tests. If you've been using ovulation predictor kits and never get a positive answer, the best next step is to give a call to your OBGYN. She's the best person to help brainstorm exactly what's going on. Hey, if it's positive, good luck this week. There are a boatload of apps to help you track your cycles and identify your fertile window. If you go to the App Store and search for Fertility Tracker, you are likely to be overwhelmed by the many options. My best advice is to download 2 or 3 and use them all for a month or 2. Then pare down to the one you like the best. Once you start entering your data into an app, it's hard to switch because you'll lose all that precious information. A lot of apps get smarter as you enter more data, and their algorithm gets better at predicting your fertile window. You can usually enter information from all the methods in the app, including the results of your OPK tests. I hope you found this episode of 40 Weeks with Dr. Martin helpful and informative. If you loved it, Leave me some comments below if you have ideas for future shows. I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to the channel. You can find me online at thepregnancydoc.com and on Twitter at Dr. Eva Martin. Until next time. Didn't take notes fast enough for my clever infographics? You can find complete notes on my website, thepregnancydoc.com. There you can also find a list of references. Trust me, they're all from really legit sources like the CDC and ACOG. Please note, nothing contained in this video is medical advice, just opinions and information. Please ask your doctor about everything and call her if something is wacky. Your situation is unique, so only your doctor can give you medical advice.